Knock at dawn. Wind still raging. Snow drifting like ash. Jonas unbolted the door. Found a woman slumped against the frame. Lydia. Face pale. Breath fading. Body collapsing into the cold. No words. Just surrender. If you want to hear how this desperate soul found salvation, stay until the very end. Warm lamplight behind him. Frozen world swallowing her. One choice left as he lifted her weight. Snow rising. Wind sharpening. Lydia presses forward through the white void. No road. No trail. Just the cracking ache of frozen air scraping her lungs. She had left her horse buried by the drift a mile back. Left the saddlebag too heavy to carry. Left everything but the will to keep moving. Her boots sink. Legs trembling. Sky darkening as if swallowing her whole. The storm had shifted in an instant, quiet one moment, merciless the next. She remembers deciding to run. Remembers the distant shout behind her. Remembers the cold rushing in before she could think twice. Now only the blizzard chases her. Only the wind calls her name in cruel, broken pieces. She leans on a fallen pine. Breath stutters. Hands numb. Strength leaking away like warmth from an open wound. Still she pushes. Still she fights the pull of the snow trying to claim her. A ridge appears through the blur. A shape. A structure. A dark square set against the white fury. The cabin. Her last hope. Her only chance. She stumbles toward it. Feet dragging. Vision flickering. Door lantern swaying in the wind like a pulse refusing to die. Closer now. Almost there. Knees buckling. Body urging surrender. She forces one more step. Then another. Wooden steps under her boots, slick with ice. Hand reaching. Fingers barely obeying. Knuckles tap the door. Soft. Weak. Barely a sound against the storm's roar. Her body slumps forward. Falls into the doorframe. Snow swallowing her lower half. Eyes dimming. Lydia collapses just as the world folds inward. The door shifts. A crack of warmth spills out, thin at first, then widening. Fire glow against her cheek. A figure filling the doorway. Broad shoulders. Steady breath. Jonas. His face lit by lamplight. Recognition flares in his eyes, sharp as the storm outside. He doesn't speak. Doesn't ask. Doesn't question. He moves. A quiet, certain motion. Arms under her weight. Lifting. Carrying her across the threshold. Cold falling away behind them. Heat rising around her like a forgotten memory. Blanket draped over her shoulders. Another toss near the fire. Jonas kneels. Checks her breathing. Closes the door with a soft final thud. The storm stays outside. She is inside. Alive. Safe, for now. Lydia drifts in and out of awareness. Warmth presses against her cheek. Soft. Unfamiliar. Safe. Fire snaps in gentle rhythm, a sound that feels almost impossible after the howl of the blizzard. She opens her eyes. Light flickers across log walls. Shadows sway like tired guardians. A blanket, thick, woolen, smelling faintly of cedar, rests over her. Someone placed it with care. She tries to rise. Pain blooms in her ribs. Her arm folds under her, useless from the cold. A mug lands on the table beside her. Quietly. Deliberately. Steam curls upward, fragrant with chamomile and something darker, earthy. Jonas stands over her. Broad frame. Stoic gaze. Jaw tight from worry he will never admit. He nudges the mug closer. Not a word. Just the offering of heat. Lydia's fingers shake as she reaches. Jonas watches, waiting only to see if she'll man-tan her own. She lifts it. The first sip burns, but not cruelly. It sends a line of warmth down her throat, a trail of life rekindling itself. She exhales. A fragile, trembling sound. Jonas turns away. Moves to the hearth. Adds 2 logs to the fire with careful precision. Each piece placed just so, as if arranging safety itself. His coat hangs near the door, dripping melted snow onto the floor. He must have just come in from checking the storm's edge. The blizzard still growls outside. A cold reminder that the world beyond these walls once were gone. Lydia shivers. Not from the temperature now. From memory. A shout carried on the wind. A silhouette in pursuit. Clayton's voice chasing her through the dark. She blinks the memory away. Jonas glances over once, catching the shift in her breath. He doesn't ask. He simply stokes the fire higher. Warmth rises. Slow. Steady. Protective. Bristle, the old ranch dog, pads into the room. Gray muzzle. Gentle eyes. He sniffs the air, then circles beside Lydia. He settles at her hip, tail thumping once in approval. She touches his fur. Heat seeps into her fingers. Softness she hasn't felt in far too long. Her throat tightens. Not from fear. From relief sharp enough to ache. Jonas returns with a tin pot. He pours warm water into a bowl and sets it near her. A cloth rests over the rim. Her gaze drifts from the bowl to him. He nods once. An invitation. A boundary. A quiet way of saying, "You clean your wounds. I'll give you the tools." Lydia peels back her sleeve. Purple bruising marks her forearm. Jonas sees it. His posture changes, barely. Shoulders stiffen. Jaw locks. But he doesn't speak. Doesn't let emotion spill. Just shifts the lantern closer for better light. She cleans the bruises, breath hitching each time the cloth touches skin. Warm water. Warm air. Warm silence. A sanctuary built without words. Jonas moves again, guiding the kettle off the stove. He pours water into a second mug, plain, practical, meant for him. He drinks standing up. Eyes on the window. Watching the storm. Watching the dark. A flash of lightning illuminates the ridge line. And for a moment, a shape seems to move beyond the tree line. Jonas narrows his gaze. The threat remains. Unseen. Unspoken. But near. He sets his mug down. Pulls another blanket from a cedar chest. Spreads it over Lydia without touching her directly. Respect carved into every motion. Her breathing steadies beneath the extra weight. The fire cracks louder. Bristle sighs, melting into sleep. Jonas sits on the far side of the table. A respectful distance. Hands clasped. Back straight. Guarding her without declaring it. She watches him through heavy eyes. His stillness. His patience. His refusal to let her freeze, even in silence. She tries to speak. Only a rasp emerges. Jonas lifts a hand. A small gesture. Stop. Breast. Breathe. She obeys. Her body loosens for the first time in days. Heat gathers beneath the blankets. Her pulse slows. Outside, the storm claws at the walls. Inside, the quiet deepens. She notices small things. A stack of chopped wood by the hearth. Her boot strung near the stove. A pot of broth simmering low. All done without asking. All done without praise. Jonas rises again. Checks the latch on the door. Tests it twice. Not paranoia. Preparation. The shadow she fled still lingers in his mind, though she's spoken no details. He senses danger the way other men sense weather. and he fortifies the space accordingly. She feels it. Feels the shift. Feels the safety strengthening like another layer of warmth. Her eyes close. Sleep nearly takes her. But another memory jolts through, a hand gripping her arm, a threat whispered just before she ran. Her breath catches. Jonas hears it. He turns. Not quickly. Not startled. Just aware. He waits, letting her decide whether to speak or stay silent. She chooses silence. He accepts it. Another micro-action. He adds a final log to the fire. Heat blooms. Soft. Steady. Indoor. Lydia slips into sleep surrounded by warmth that feels almost impossible. Jonas keeps watch. The storm pounds outside. But the sanctuary holds. Lydia sleeps. Not deeply. Not freely. But enough that her breath evens and her body sinks into the borrowed blankets. Jonas stands by the hearth. Arms folded. Eyes steady. Listening to the quiet as if it might shift without warning. Warmth rolls through the cabin in slow waves. The fire glows soft amber. Bread warms on a stone. Steam hums from the kettle. He moves without sound, checking the windows, adjusting the shutters, making sure no draft slips through. The storm has eased, but the cold still prowls along the edges of the world. He feels it pressing at the door. He returns to the table. The lantern casts a cone of gold over Lydia's belongings, all placed where he'd set them last night. A torn coat. A damp scarf. A leather satchel worn thin at the seams. He hadn't opened anything. But now, with her finally resting, he studies the satchel. One corner is ripped. The stitching frayed. A dried stain darkens the bottom. He lifts it gently. It barely weighs anything. Inside, a small circle slides against the fabric with a muted thud. He hesitates. Then sets the satchel back down. He doesn't touch the journal. Not yet. A sound interrupts him. The soft hitch of breath. A tremor beneath the blanket. Lydia turns in her sleep, face tightening with a memory she cannot outrun. He watches. Not intruding. Just reading the signs of someone who has lived with fear long enough for it to follow her into dreams. The kettle whistles low. A warm sound. A gentle anchor. Jonas moves it off the heat. As he sets it aside, a different sound threads through the room. The distant knock of a loose barn shutter slamming in the wind. Sharp. Sudden. Jonas's shoulders shift. His hand instinctively moves toward the rifle leaning near the stove. The threat is not here. Not yet. But close enough that even the house seems to hold its breath. Lydia stirs again. Her eyes crack open. Disoriented. Uncertain. Still half tangled in whatever memory chased her through sleep. She sees the room first. Then the dog beside her. Then Jonas. Her body tenses, a tiny recoil. Jonas stays still, letting her decide whether she's safe. She sits up slowly. The blanket slips, revealing the bruise on her forearm. Purplish. Uneven. Fresh. Jonas's gaze flickers there. Not lingering. Not judging. Just acknowledging. She notices his attention and pulls the blanket higher. A reflex born from too much hiding. He nods once. Not pressing. He turns to ladle broth from the pot into a small wooden bowl. He sets it on the table near her. The steam rises like a quiet offering. She studies the bowl. Hesitant. As if kindness has weight she's forgotten how to hold. Then she takes it with both hands. Warmth floods into her fingers. She breathes in. The smell, rich, simple broth, brings her sharply back to the present. Her eyes soften. Not trust. Not yet. But gratitude edged with disbelief. Jonas sits across from her. Not too close. Not far. His presence steady as the hearth. A silence hangs between them. Not awkward. Not cold. Just a space where words refuse to rush in. Lydia sets the bowl down. Her gaze moves to her satchel. Her hand reaches for it automatically, protectively. He notices. She hooks her fingers through the strap and pulls it closer. Jonas doesn't comment. He just watches as she checks the contents, not by opening it, but by pressing her hand along the outside, feeling for familiar shapes. A journal. A folded paper. Something metallic tucked in a corner. She exhales with relief. Whatever she feared losing is still there. Jonas rises. He grabs a clean cloth from the shelf, submerges it in warm water, wringing it out with slow, deliberate movements. Then he offers it to her. No gesture to explain it. No instructions. Just the simple act of giving her a way to wash her hands, her face, her past off her skin for a moment. She accepts. Their fingers brush. Only for a heartbeat. But it sends a ripple of warmth through the room. As she cleans her face, a shadow crosses the frosted window. A passing branch? A trick of fading light? Or something watching from the outer dark? Jonas goes still. Every sense focusing. Lydia notices his attention shift. Her breath halts. He moves to the window. Slow. Silent. He peers through the smallest crack in the shutter. Nothing visible. Yet the unease lingers, like a scent carried in by the cold. He secures the latch again. Double-checks the hinge. The cabin settles into quiet. Warmth wraps around them both. But the tension doesn't vanish entirely. Lydia finishes washing. The cloth trembles in her hand. Joan mistakes it back gently and sets it aside. She looks at him now, longer than before, as though weighing whether he is a refuge or another danger she'll have to survive. He breaks no silence, makes no demands. He just sits, steady, unmoving. A man whose presence doesn't crowd the air, but fills it with something like steadied ground. Lydia opens her satchel carefully. She takes out the journal. Worn edges. Rain-stained leather. She holds it against her chest. Her fingertips press into the cover, as though the pages inside are the only proof she has left that her story is real. Jonas sees the motion. Understanding settles quietly in his expression. He won't ask what's written there. Won't pry. But the journal is a wound. A map of harm. A piece of truth waiting for the moment it will have to be spoken aloud. A log collapses in the fire, sending sparks upward. Warm light pulses across them both. The storm groans outside, pushing against the world. Inside, the thaw continues, slow, cautious, fragile. He stands. Adds another log. Lets the fire breathe stronger. Lydia watches him with a softness she didn't intend to show. A tiny warmth among the embers of fear. She clutches the journal again. And for the first time since crossing his threshold, her shoulders lower. Just a little. The storm still hunts. The shadow still lingers. But the evidence of her suffering has been seen. Not spoken. Not explained. Seen. And in the stillness, that alone begins to change everything. Dawn slips through the shutters in thin, honey-colored lines. Warmth settles low in the cabin, clinging to the air like a gentle promise. Lydia wakes slowly. Not startled this time. Not gasping. Just waking. Bristle is the first thing she sees. The old dog lies at the foot of the cot, chin on his paws, eyes watching her with quiet calculation. He thumps his tail once. A greeting. A test. An invitation. She lifts a hand. He inches closer. Warm fur. Warm breath. A small kindness that asks for nothing in return. Her eyes soften. Her shoulders ease. Jonas stands near the stove, back turned, stirring something in a cast iron pot. The scent of broth rises. Steady. Comforting. He glances her way. Offers a nod. No words. A rhythm they've already begun to learn. Lydia sits up. Blankets pool at her waist. The warmth beneath them feels earned. Hard-won. She strokes Bristle again. He presses into her hand, Dale tapping the floor. A bridge forming. Soft. Unforced. Jonas sets a bowl on the table. Steam curls upward. He steps back. Allows her the space to rise if she wishes, or stay wrapped in the cot if she doesn't. She stands. Slowly. Carefully. Her knees tremble. Bristle rises with her instantly, body angled just enough to steady her if she falters. Her breath catches at the unexpected loyalty. Jonas notices but doesn't comment. He pours himself a cup of coffee. The warmth of it threads through the room. Lydia reaches the table. Her hands wrap around the bowl. Heat sinks into her palms. Her eyes close for a heartbeat. Relief. The wind outside scratches along the roofline, a cold reminder of everything she escaped. A memory flashes, Clayton's hand gripping her wrist. His voice tripping threats into the dark. Her breath stutters. Bristle nudges her thigh, grounding her, pulling her back to warmth. She strokes his head until the tremor fades. Jonas watches, silent, attentive. He picks up a small loaf of bread from the shelf and cuts it into thick, uneven slices. He sets one on her plate. Another micro-action. Another offering of safety disguised as routine. She sits. He sits across from her. Bristle settles between them like an old sentinel. The heat from the stove. The soft clink of spoon against bowl. The steady breath of the dog at her feet. A quiet truce forming. Lydia takes a bite. It warms her from the inside. She swallows a second too quickly, coughing softly. Jonas pushes his cup of water toward her. She accepts. Their fingers brush. A spark of recognition. Not romantic. Not yet. But human. Shared survival. A beginning. She looks at him longer this time, noticing the tiredness in his eyes. The way he positions himself near the door without thinking. The way he listens to the silence between every gust of wind. She realizes he kept watch all night. The thought settles deep, heavy. Denver. Jonas rises, puts on his coat. He gestures toward the window. Storm's easing. Then to the barn. Animals need tending. She nods. Bristle trots after him. But at the threshold, the dog stops. Looks back at Lydia. Waits. Jonas pauses. He gives a small, almost invisible nod. Let her come if she wants. Lydia hesitates. Then stands. Wraps the blanket around her shoulders like a traveling cloak. She steps outside. Cold rushes in. Sharp. Clean. An honest chill compared to the cold she fled. Her breath clouds before her. Jonas walks ahead, boots crunching through the snow. Lydia follows in his footsteps. Bristle weaves between them, part guardian, part guide. The barn door creaks open. Warm hay scent spills out. Cows shift. A horse steps. Life. Routine. Safety built from repetition. Jonas moves through chores with quiet efficiency. Lydia watches, absorbing the steadiness of it. She reaches to stroke the muzzle of a chestnut mare. The horse leans into her palm with unexpected trust. A softness she hasn't known in months spreads through her chest. She meets Jonas's eyes. For a moment, something unspoken passes between them. A recognition that this place, this rhythm, this fragile sanctuary, might offer healing neither of them expected. A shadow flickers near the tree line. Jonas freezes, hand drifting toward the tool bench where an axe rests. Lydia's breath tightens. Bristle's ears prick, body going rigid. But the shadow moves on. Just an animal. Or so it seems. Tension lingers like a faint echo. Jonas waits until the silence settles again, then returns to the animals. Lydia helps this time, passing feed, filling water buckets, smoothing a horse's flank. Small tasks. Small connections. Warmth returning to her through action. Bristle follows her everywhere. Tail wagging. Guarding. Claiming her as part of the pack. Jonas watches that, too. Not smiling. That isn't his way. But something in him eases. Trust growing in the space between all three of them. When they finish, Lydia lingers in the barn doorway. Snowflakes drift from a quiet sky. No storm. Not now. But the world feels fragile. As if one wrong step could crack it open again. She wraps the blanket tighter. Jonas closes the barn door. Their steps crunch side by side on the walk back. Bristle trots ahead, glancing over his shoulder as though making sure they keep pace. Inside the cabin, warmth meets them instantly. Soft. Sheltering. Lydia exhales, tension slipping away as the fire's glow wraps around her. Jonas hangs his coat. She mirrors him, placing the blanket neatly over the chair. A shared ritual forming. She looks down. Bristle sits beside her feet. Head tilted. Expectant. He places one politely on her boot. Her hand rises, resting on his fur. Her voice returns in a whisper she doesn't intend. Good boy. Jonas hears it. He looks at her. Really looks. Not as the stranger who collapsed at his door, but as someone finding her way back to herself. Warmth radiates through the room. Not from the fire. Not from the blankets. From something quieter. Stronger. Found family. Unspoken, but already real. Morning steadies itself across the ranch, pale light slipping through frost-laced windows. Warmth settles thick in the cabin. Fire crackling, coffee scent drifting. The quiet rhythm of two people sharing space without speaking. Jonas sharpens a knife at the table. Stone against steel. Slow. Precise. Lydia folds blankets near the hearth, Bristle dozing beside her feet. A calm moment. Earned. Fragile. Then, an knock. Soft. Polite. Wrong. Lydia freezes. Bristle lifts his head, a low growl vibrating beneath his ribs. Jonas's hand stops mid-stroke. He looks at the door. Not moving. Not breathing. Lydia's pulse roars in her ears. That knock. Too gentle. Too careful. Too familiar. Jonas stands. His chair barely whispers against the floor. He nods once for Lydia to stay back. She steps closer to the hearth, instinct overriding thought. Her fingers clutch the edge of her shawl. The knock comes again. Measured. Unhurried. As though the person on the other side already knows he will be welcomed in. Jonas unlocks the door. Opens it only a few inches. Cold presses in. A thin blade of winter slicing through the warmth. A man stands on the porch. Well dressed. Hair neatly combed. Coat free of snow despite the lingering drifts. A smile set too carefully on his face. Good morning, he says, voice smooth as polished hook. Jonas doesn't answer. He simply waits. The man glances past him, eyes flicking toward the hearth's glow. I'm looking for a young woman, he continues. My fiancée, Lydia Marsh. Lydia's breath stops. Her body locks. Bristle stands, fur rising along his back. Jonas's frame shifts just slightly. Not enough to show aggression. Only enough to block all view inside the cabin. The man sighs softly, a practiced sadness. She's unwell. Confused. She tends to wander when she's overwhelmed. He meets Jonas's gaze with gentle concern painted across his features. I'm sure you understand. Jonas says nothing. The silence grows thick. Unforgiving. Cold air curls around the man's polished boots. Inside, the fire snaps louder. A reminder of the warmth Lydia cannot afford to lose. She edges back a step, but her heel taps a tin pot. A tiny sound. Barely a whisper. Clayton's eyes sharpen. His smile brightens. There, he says. I thought I heard her. He moves as though to push the door wider. Jonas doesn't allow it. He holds the door firm with one hand, effortless, immovable. Clayton blinks. Oh, I'm sorry. I assumed. He lets the unfinished sentence hang, dripping false courtesy. Lydia's throat tightens. A memory slams through her. Clayton's temper hidden behind polite phrases. His threats whispered with a gentleman's cadence. Fear claws up her spine. She grips the shawl so hard her knuckles pale. Jonas glances over the shoulder. One look. Short. Steady. She understands the message without a word. You're safe. Stay still. He faces Clayton again. Clayton's tone shifts subtly. Still warm, still civil, but edged with quiet authority. Sir, she's fragile. I should really bring her home. Jonas doesn't move. Clayton tries another wrangle, voice softening with coaxing charm. If she came here, I know she meant no trouble. She's troubled. She imagines things sometimes. The line hangs in the air like thick smoke. Lydia presses a hand to her mouth. Bristle steps closer, protective instinct sharpening into silent tension. Clayton leans slightly forward. Please. If she's inside, just let me speak with her. Jonas's jaw tightens. He pushes the door another inch. Not open, but closed. Clayton's eyes widen. A crack appears in his mask. Then, almost invisible, but real. He straightens, adjusts his gloves, then smiles again, smoother than before. Of course, he says. I see I've caught you at an inconvenient time. His gaze slides over Jonas's shoulder again, searching for a glimpse of Lydia. He finds none. Jonas blocks every angle, every line of sight. Clayton steps back. Snow crunches beneath his polished heel. I'll return, he says calmly. With papers. With proof. A promise disguised as courtesy. A threat draped in velvet. He tips his hat. Turns. Walks toward the trees. But he pauses once. Just long enough for the wind to lift the edge of his coat. Just long enough for Lydia to see that familiar tension in his shoulders. The one he always had before a punishment. Then he disappears down the trail. Jonas closes the door. Latches it. Bars it. The warmth of the cabin returns slowly, like breath after a long-held fear. Lydia sags against the table. Bristle presses against her thigh. Her heartbeat thunders in her ears. Jonas steps toward her. Not too close. Not touching. Just near enough. Just steady enough. He found me, she whispers, though her voice barely forms the words. Jonas nods once. A simple truth acknowledged. She trembles. He moves to the fire. Adds a log. A small act. A necessary one. A declaration she doesn't fully understand yet. The siege has begun. But she is not facing it alone. Snow melts in thin threads down the cabin windows as midday settles in. Warmth pools around the hearth. But it cannot reach the corners where fear lingers. Lydia sits at the table, hands wrapped around a cooling mug. Bristle rests beneath her chair, Dale still, ears ready. Jonas oils a hinge near the door, movements measured, steady, preparing the cabin as if expecting another storm. Not of weather. Of men. The knock has not returned. But its echo has not left. Lydia keeps glancing at the window. At the tree line. At the faint path Clayton walked down with certainty in his stride. Jonas glances at her once. Not asking. Just knowing. She tries to breathe evenly. Fails. Clayton's voice loops in her mind. Soft, polished, sharpened beneath the sweetness. She imagines things sometimes. A lie dressed like concern. A blade hidden in silk. She presses a hand to her ribs as if trying to hold the crack inside herself closed. Jonas sets the hinge aside. Lights another lantern. Even though the sun still stands. Light pushes back the dark. But only a little. Outside, the cold deepens. Shadows grow longer. The world narrows. Then, hoofbeats. Slow. Intentional. Lydia stiffens. Bristle rises, chest rumbling. Jonas moves to the window. Keeps to the side. Looks only through a sliver. 3 horses stand near the fence line. And 3 riders sit upon them. Hats tipped, clothes tidy, expressions kindly in a way that feels wrong. Clayton is not with them. Which somehow makes it worse. Lydia's breath fans. Jonas steps back. He doesn't open the door. Not this time. But a voice carries across the yard. Gentle, pleasant, as if stopping by for a neighborly chat. "Hello there. Got a minute?" Another voice follows. "Just checking in. Looking for a missing woman." Lydia closes her eyes. Clayton's patterns return. He never comes first. He sends charm ahead of him. He lets others soften the ground for the lie. Jonas waits. Silent. The riders dismount. One knocks on the door. Twice. Friendly. Casual. Calculated. "Sir," a calm voice calls, "we heard a young lady wandered off during the storm. We're helping her fiancé find her. Poor thing's not quite herself these days." Lydia's fingers dig into her sleeves. Her breath trembles. The lie tightens around her ribs like a rope. Jonas looks over her. A question in his eyes. Not what happened. Not why. Only, "Do you want me to open it?" She shakes her head once. He nods. The men outside continue their performance. "We don't mean trouble. Just want to bring her home safe." They take a few steps toward the window. Jonas shifts. Just enough to block their view. They notice. Pause. One of them smiles through the glass. "Sir, it might ease your mind to know we're on official business. Clayton's a respected man. We aim to reunite him with his bride-to-be." The word bride slides into the room like poison. Lydia flinches. Bristle growls again, louder. Jonas places a steady hand on the dog's shoulder. The riders step back from the window. Their voices drift, low and persuasive. "Well, maybe he's worried for nothing. But you know how it is with a troubled woman. They get confused. Frightened. Run toward the first open door." Lydia grips the journal in her lap like a lifeline. Her heart pounds against it. Jonas turns from the window and kneels by the stove. Not to cook. Not to warm himself. But to pull the cast iron poker from the coals. A quiet weapon. Radiating heat. A beacon of the warmth he's willing to wield against cold intentions. The men knock once more. Less friendly now. "Sir, if you're harboring her, you could be obstructing the law." Jonas stands. Poker in hand. Not raised. Just visible. He opens the door a crack. Enough to show the heated iron. Enough to show the man holding it is not afraid. The riders stiffen. Jonas says nothing. The silence lands like a stone. The warmth behind him. The fire. The lanterns. The living breath of the cabin. Stands in stark contrast to the icy breath curling from the riders' mouths. They exchange glances. One tries again, carefully. "We're just doing what's right. Clayton said she's unstable. Said she hurts herself sometimes. We need to bring her back." Lydia feels her throat close. Clayton's favorite lie. Spoken now in another man's voice. Her hands shake. Jonas turns slightly, just enough to see her. Her fear. Her trembling. Her truth. He turns back to the riders. Steps forward. One step. The poker glows. Red. Unmistakable. And he closes the door without a word. Bars it. Secures it. The riders linger outside. Their footsteps crunch. Their murmurs float. Then fade. Snow falls again. Thin and whisper soft. But the threat doesn't disappear. Not really. It only gathers itself in the distance, waiting for Clayton to return, with more lies, more voices, more law twisted to his will. Lydia leans against the table, shoulders shaking. Jonas places the poker back in the stove. The fire flares. Warmth swells. He does not speak. He does not ask. He simply turns the lantern up brighter, pushing back the cold, pushing back the lie, pushing back the darkness that still claws at the edges of her mind. The siege tightens. But inside the cabin, the warmth holds. Late afternoon settles over the ranch, the sky washed in pale gold that barely reaches the snow-packed earth. Warmth breathes through the cabin, fire steady, soup simmering, bristle curled near the door like a woolen guard. Lydia sits close to the hearth, mending a tear in her sleeve with trembling fingers. Jonas checks the window latches again. Twice. Then once more. Outside, the cold presses like a listening stranger. Inside, something else presses. The memory of Clayton's men smiling through lies. Lydia exhales shakily. Jonas notices. Sets a pot down gently to avoid startling her. Another act of care wrapped in silence. She gives him a small nod. The kind that says she saw it. The kind that says it mattered. The cabin steadies. Just a little. Then, hoofbeats. Not distant this time. Close. Approaching with purpose. Jonas straightens. Bristle's growl deepens into something warning and primal. Lydia's needle slips from her fingers, clinks against the floor. Jonas steps toward the door, each movement tightened with readiness. He looks back at her. That same message in his eyes. Stay behind me. She rises, breath then. Her hand finds the edge of the table, anchoring herself. Another knock. Not polite. Not hesitant. Confident. Entitled. Jonas opens the door just enough to stand in it. Clayton stands on the porch. Snow on his boots. Smile on his face. Eyes warm in a way he'd never touched. Jonas, he says pleasantly. May I come in? Jonas doesn't move. Clayton clicks his tongue softly. Rescuing lost girls is noble work. But she's not lost. She's unstable. Lydia recoils at the word. Her breath cracks like ice underfoot. Clayton hears it. His smile brightens. There she is. Bristle lunges forward, bark sharp. Jonas blocks him with one arm. Steady. Controlled. Clayton lifts a folded paper. Official looking. Stamped in red. She belongs under my care. Signed by the sheriff. Witnessed by half the town. Jonas's jaw tightens. Clayton softens his tone. It's not your fault. She's persuasive when frightened. Always has been. The lie slithers across the threshold. Cold. Precise. Lydia pushes herself a step closer, shaking. Clayton's gaze snaps to her. Sweetheart. Come now. Let's go home. She flinches. Memories strike. His hand on her arm. His voice tripping sugar over threats. The way he'd smile before hurting her. Her knees weaken. Jonas shifts, blocking Clayton entirely. The cabin's warmth gathers behind him like a shield. Clayton sighs. Tired. Patient. Practiced. You're making this difficult, friend. Jonas says nothing. Clayton gestures broadly. I offered you money earlier. I can offer more. A lot more. Jonas doesn't blink. Clayton tries again, voice silk over steel. She leaves with me. Or the sheriff returns and charges you with harboring a mentally unfit woman. He leans in. Lowers his voice. Your reputation won't survive that. And hers certainly won't. A gust of cold pushes against the porch, swirling snow around Clayton's boots. The warmth inside recoils, shrinking from the thread at the door. Lydia grips the back of the chair so tightly her knuckles pale. Jonas steps forward. Just one step. Clayton steps back instinctively. His smile cracks for a breath, then reforms. "Well," he says, brushing snow from his coat, "I see you're committed to a misunderstanding." He taps the paper against his palm. "I'll be back tomorrow. With more men. With the sheriff himself." He tilts his head, eyes sliding past Jonas as if trying to reach Lydia with his gaze alone. She tends to panic when confronted. His smile sharpens. "Try not to agitate her." He turns. Walks toward his horse. Boots crunching slow, unhurried confidence. Lydia's breath finally releases. Too fast. Too sharp. Bristle barks again, loud and furious, until Clayton disappears into the tree line. Jonas closes the door. Bars it. Checks the window. Checks the other window. Then leans his hand on the wall, head bowed for one brief, quiet moment. The weight of the siege settling over the ranch. Lydia moves toward him. Stops halfway, unsure. The fire crackles. Warmth tries to rise again. But fear clings to the edges like frost refusing to melt. Jonas turns. His expression steady, assured, rooted. She swallows. "He won't let me go," she whispers. Jonas meets her gaze. A promise sits there. Solid as timber. Quiet as breath. He adds another log to the fire. A micro-action. A vow without words. The warmth brightens. The cold outside gathers. And the sanctuary, though strained, holds. Snow settles in a thin, deceptive calm across the ranch. The morning feels too still. Too measured. As if the cold itself is waiting. Lydia stands by the hearth, hands trembling around a cup she hasn't sipped. Jonas moves through the cabin with quiet focus, checking the shutters, testing the latch, stoking the fire until the warmth rises in steady waves. Bristle won't lie down. He paces near the door. Ears sharp. Hackles raised. A warning in motion. Lydia glances at the window. The memory of Clayton's last words coils tight in her ribs. Tomorrow. With more men. With the sheriff to herself. She wraps her shawl tighter, as though fabric could shield her from the law's cold grip. Jonas notices. He softens the firelight with another lantern. A gesture meant to anchor her. Before the warmth can settle. Hoofbeats. Multiple. Heavy. Decisive. Unhurried in a way that signals authority. Lydia stiffens. The cup slips from her hand. Shatters on the floor. Bristle barks once, sharp enough to cut the silence. Jonas steps to the door. Not opening it. Simply positioning himself between her and the world. Voices drift from outside. Clayton's first. Smooth. Satisfied. "Sheriff, this is the place." Then another voice. Older, steadier, falsely neutral. "Jonas Hale, open up. We're not here to cause trouble." Lydia's breath falters. Jonas remains stone. Another knock. Harder. Authority behind it. "Jonas, the sheriff calls. Man's got papers. Claims the woman he's looking for is unstable and under his care." Lydia flinches. That word again. Unstable. She presses the hand over her mouth. A fractured memory surges. Clayton whispering that word the night she ran. Whispering it so softly it sounded like affection until it tightened around her like a noose. Jonas unbars the door. Opens it only halfway. Cold explodes inward. Winter rushing across the cabin floor. Clayton stands beside the sheriff, wearing concern like a tailored coat. "There she is," he says softly, eyes sliding past Jonas. "My poor Lydia." Jonas shifts, blocking his view. "No," Lydia whispers behind him, voice barely a thread. The sheriff lifts the signed paper. "Jonas, the law's clear here. She's claimed by him, and there's signatures to back it." Jonas's jaw tightens. Bristle growls, body planted between Lydia and the doorway. Clayton rolls his shoulders back, savoring the moment. "Come now," he says. "Let's bring you home." Lydia's knees weaken. "Please," she whispers, almost inaudible. "Don't let him." Jonas hears it. All of it. He steps outside the threshold. Just one step. A step that changes everything. The sheriff blinks. "Jonas, this isn't wise." Jonas doesn't answer. He stands there. Coat open to the cold. Breath rising in white clouds. A wall the winter cannot move. Clayton tries again. "We're stripping patience." She's distressed. "She's manipulating you. She gets like this." Lydia's hands shake harder. Jonas lifts a hand. Not toward Clayton. Not toward the sheriff. But back toward the cabin. Wordless. Protective. Commanding her to stay in the warmth. Then his gaze lands on the sheriff. Steady. Unmoving. Final. The sheriff frowns. "This is obstruction, Jonas." Jonas doesn't flinch. He doesn't raise his voice. Doesn't reach for a weapon. He simply steps 1 inch closer. Sheriff Orton stiffens. Clayton's smile slips. A crack. Barely there. But visible. Jonas speaks at last. A single, low statement. "She stays." The words land heavier than any shout. Clayton's face tightens. "Sheriff, do something." The sheriff shifts uneasily. "Jonas, if you resist, I'll have to arrest you." Lydia gasps. "No." Jonas doesn't look back. Doesn't waver. The fire behind him spills warm light across his shoulders. The cold in front of him gnaws like a living thing. Bristle edges up beside him, fur bristling, growl low and unwavering. Jonas stands. Breathing slow. "Sure." Clayton steps forward, voice snapping. "She is mine." Jonas's stance hardens. A promise forged in silence. A boundary carved in bone. "She stays," he repeats. No louder. No fiercer. Just unbreakable. The sheriff hesitates. Looks at Lydia. Her bruises, her fear, her shaking hands clutching the shawl Jonas gave her. Something shifts in his eyes. Down. Then, but present. Clayman notices. Loses a fraction more control. "Sheriff," he snaps. "She's unwell. She lies. She's always lied." The outburst scrapes the mask off him. The sheriff sees it. Feels it. But law is law, and Clayton still holds the papers. He steps back. Conflicted. "I'll return," he mutters. "With a warrant to search the home." Clayton straightens his coat, fury flickering beneath his gentleman's varnish. "You can't keep her from me," he says to Jonas. "Not forever." Jonas closes the door on him. Latches it. Bars it. The cold dies behind the wood. Warmth rises in its place. Lydia collapses onto the chair, breath shaking uncontrollably. Bristle presses against her legs. Jonas kneels. Not touching her. Just within arm's reach. A solid presence. A vow without speech. Her tears spill, not from weakness, but from the moment she realizes something unthinkable. Someone finally stood. For her. Against him. Against the law twisted in his favor. The storm of men has not passed. But the stand has been made. And the sanctuary, though trembling, still holds. Snow lies thin and brittle across the town square, the kind that crunches under boots and keeps breath close to the ground. The church doors stand open. Warm light spills onto the steps, bright against the gray morning. Inside, a low murmur drifts. Townsfolk gathering, curious, uneasy, pulled by the scent of conflict. Jonas walks at Lydia's side. Not touching her, but close enough that each step steadies her own. Bristle trails behind them, tail low, eyes sharp. Lydia clutches her journal to her chest. Its worn leather warms under her fingers, a heartbeat she can hold. Jonas pushes open the church door. Warmth greets them. Candlelight. Wood polish. Dozens of eyes. The sheriff stands near the front pew. Rigid. Uncertain. Clayton beside him, polished as ever. Coat perfect, smile effortless, confidence carved into his posture. Clayton turns. "Lydia," he says softly, relief coating every syllable. "I knew Jonas would bring you to your senses." The murmur ripples. Lydia swallows hard. Fear clings to her like frost. Clayton steps forward, hands open in a gesture of tender authority. "Sweetheart, this has gone far enough. Come home." Jonas moves half a step in front of her. Clayton's mask does not break. Not yet. The sheriff clears his throat. "We're here to determine the truth. Lydia, you'll speak today. Clayton will speak. And the town will witness." Lydia trembles. Her voice hides deep inside her chest. Jonas places one hand on the back of the pew. A small grounding gesture. Not touching her. Just anchoring the space around her. Clayton smiles and begins. He speaks of devotion. Concern. Responsibility. He speaks of a woman plagued by confusion, drawn to dramatic escapes, susceptible to panic. The crowd listens. Sympathetic. Unsure. Clayton's voice melts across the room like warm honey. "She needs guidance," he says softly. "Not fear. Not wilderness. Not isolation." He lifts the signed papers. Proof, to anyone who doesn't look too closely. Jonas's jaw tightens. Lydia feels the walls closing. The cold memory of Clayton whispering lies behind closed doors. Then Jonas glances at her. A single look. Steady. Certain. Her breath gathers. Very small. Very fragile. But hers. She steps forward. The room stills. Clayton beams. Expecting surrender. Lydia opens the journal. Pages fragile from cold and handle it. "I wrote everything," she whispers. Clayton's smile falters. Lydia lifts the journal higher. "These are his words. Not mine." The sheriff steps closer. "What do you mean?" Lydia turns to a marked page. Her hand shakes, but she reads anyway. Clayton's handwriting, sharp, slanted, unmistakable, spills across the page. "Control her. Calm her. Break her panic before she runs again." A gasp cuts through the pews. Clayton's mask cracks at the edges. Lydia reads another line. "Keep her from the doctor. Bruises fade in days." Shadows shift across Clayton's face like clouds over ice. "That's taken out of context," he snaps, voice thickening. "You don't understand our episodes." A woman in the crowd stands. "I saw her buy medicine 2 months back," she calls. She could barely hold the coins. Looked terrified. A shopkeeper rises next. "I heard shouting from your house, Clayton." Days on end. The murmurs swell. Warmth rising. Solidarity building. Clayton's composure fractures. "She lies," he hisses. "She always lies." Jonas steps forward. Not catching Lydia, but close enough to cast a shield of calm over her trembling shoulders. "She hasn't lied once," he says quietly. The sheriff lifts the journal. Reads the lines himself. Each word burns hotter than the last. Crowd shifts. Collective realization settling like sunrise. Clayton reaches for Lydia. A final attempt. Jonas intercepts, grip higher and strong around Clayton's wrist. Clayton recoils. The sheriff snaps the warrant in half. "Clayton Ward," he says, voice sharp as winter air. "You're under arrest." Clayton's face strains of charm, of control, of power. He is dragged from the church, shouting, voice cracking against the stone walls. Lydia watches him go. Her breath finally comes. Warm, steady, full. The town looks at her now. Not with pity. Not with suspicion. But with understanding. Vindication rising like heat from the hearth. Jonas stands beside her. Quiet. Solid. Bristle leans gently against her leg. She closes her journal. And for the first time in months, the cold loosens its hold. Snow softens under the late morning sun, the worst of winter finally loosening its grip on the valley. The town square stands quieter now. Clayton is gone, led away in irons, swallowed by distance and law. But Lydia still feels the echo of his shadow. A tremor under the ribs. A memory that hasn't fully thawed. Jonas walks beside her as they leave the church. Not guiding. Not pushing. Just present. Bristle trots between them, Dale lifted, body relaxed for the first time in days. Warmth glows from the lanterns hung along the street. Small flames. Steady. Reassuring. Lydia breathes in the scent of wood smoke, sunlight warming her scarf. Freedom has a temperature. She didn't know that until now. They reach the horses. Jonas lifts the reins, offering her the choice. Go back to the cabin. Go somewhere new. Go anywhere. She meets his gaze. Finds no expectation there. Only patience. Only the quiet strength that has carried her since the storm. The cabin, she whispers. Her voice fragile but true. He nods once. They ride. Slow. Side by side. Wind brushes her cheeks. Not biting. Not cruel. Just cold enough to sharpen the moment. The memory of Clayton's voice surfaces once, fades as a distant echo. Unstable. Confused. Mine. She shivers. Jonas notices. He shifts his coat toward her side of the saddle, blocking the wind without a word. A small warmth. A vow repeated in action. The ranch appears over the ridge. Smoke lifts from the chimney like a signal of survival. Lydia exhales. Her ribs loosen. Her shoulders lower. Home. Not because the place claims her, but because she chooses it now. Jonas dismounts first. Offers a hand. She takes it. Still trembling. But not with fear anymore. Bristle bounds toward the porch, nose dusted with snow. Jonas opens the door. Warmth spills out. Rich, golden, familiar. She steps inside. The fire crackles in greeting. The cabin feels different now. Not a hiding place. Not a shelter borrowed from desperation. A sanctuary earned. She runs her hand along the table edge, tracing the grain of the wood. The same table where she drank broth the first morning. The same table where her hands shook under Clayton's lies. Now her touch is steady. Jonas watches from the doorway. Quiet as always. He takes off his coat. Hangs it beside hers. Two shapes on the same hook. A small symbol. A soft claim. Lydia kneels by the hearth. Bristle settles beside her, nose nudging her knee. She strokes his fur. Warm. Trusting. Family. Jonas moves to the stove, lifting the kettle. He pours hot water into 2 cups. Sets one beside her. Keeps one for himself. A shared ritual taking shape. But the air shifts for a heartbeat. A flicker of doubt. A ghost of the past pressing against her throat. She closes her eyes. The memory sharpens. Clayton's hand on her arm. His breath cold with threat. Her breath wavers. Jonas kneels beside her. Not touching. Not crowding. Just there. Warmth within reach. Lydia opens her eyes. Meets his. The firelight reflects in his gaze. Steady, unwavering, real. She places her journal on the hearthstone. No longer clutched to her chest. No longer her only defense. A symbol now. Of truth spoken. Of fear released. Jonas nods. A quiet acknowledgement of everything that brought her here. She breathes deeply. The first breath that feels like her own. Warmth expands through the cabin. Soft. Full. Permanent. She turns toward Jonas. A small, brave smile finds its way to her lips. "Thank you," she murmurs. He doesn't reply. He doesn't need to. He gently pushes a new log into the fire. Flame rises. Bright. Strong. A sanctuary sealed not by words, but by warmth returned. For good. If this story stirred a memory or two, saddle up with us again. Hit subscribe and help keep these old frontier tales alive. Out here, every name, every trail, every sunset still matters. So till we meet again, friend, keep your hat tipped to the past and your heart pointed west.